Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. As a former Mormon, I criticize the Mormon church a lot. That's what the majority of my videos are about. I've answered the question of why I do that a million times already, so we're not going to talk about it today. I actually want to talk about positive things about the Mormon church. And before you go, ew, and click away, I think this is actually something really important to talk about, so I hope you stick around. I asked my ex-Mormon followers if there was anything that they actually missed about the Mormon church. And of course, there were several people that answered, no, absolutely not. There's not one single thing that I miss about the church. But there were a lot of people who brought up a lot of really great points about things that they miss or things that were positives in their lives. And as I read through those comments, there were a lot of them that I related to, a lot of things that I was like, yeah, I miss that too. And I think that for a lot of us, especially those of us who, one, were either raised in the LDS church, so that's all we really ever knew growing up, and also those of us who were raised in a predominantly Mormon area, like the middle of Utah, when you leave after that, it can be really difficult to find and build a new community. And community is the number one thing that people said they missed about the Mormon church. Mormonism ties you to the other Mormons in your community in a pretty strong way, just because there are so many church activities and so many church-related things that you gather together and go do as a community. Mormons don't just like go to whatever church is closest to them. They are actually assigned a congregation that meets at a specific time in a specific building every Sunday. It usually is the people that are closest to you though. So every Sunday you meet with the same people. And then if you're, part of the youth program, either as a youth or as a youth leader, you are also going to get together every week, either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, to do the youth activities. There's also different activities for the Relief Society program, that's the women. There are youth camps during the summer. There are ward Halloween parties and ward Christmas parties. There are ward breakfasts sometimes. And usually when you have like one of these big parties, there's a potluck. And if you live in a very Mormon prominent community, the people that you're going to all these activities with are your neighbors. And something that a lot of people brought up in their comments and messages to me on this topic were that they missed knowing their neighbors. They missed having a built-in community. They missed going to these different activities. It got them out of the house. And personally, I definitely relate to that. In fact, there was one time when I was a member of the church, I was moving about an hour away from where I lived. While we were like driving the moving truck to the new house, I looked online, found the name and number of the bishop of the ward we were going to be in, and called him on the phone and was like, hi, I'm gonna be a member of your ward. I'm moving in today. Can you send anybody over to help us unload the truck? And he did. We bought a bunch of soda and boxes of pizza, and a bunch of guys from our new ward in our neighborhood came and helped us move and ate the pizza, and we got to introduce ourselves. Obviously that was super beneficial for us, not only with having help with the move, but also getting to meet and become friends with our new neighbors. And we've moved a couple of times since then and obviously haven't had that same type of support and that same type of built-in friendship. Another thing I saw several people mention was the reassurance that if something goes wrong, I know where to go to get help, and feeling like there was something I could do if I had a problem to solve, like go to the temple, pray, or get a blessing. There's been a few times since leaving the church where something really bad has happened, either in my own life or the life of a family member, and one of my first instincts is like, pray about it. Because when you're a member of the church, that's like the automatic thing that you do. I have this big problem or something really bad has happened, I'm gonna pray. And I didn't always get a lot of peace from doing that, but I did have the feeling like I should every single time, and like it would actually help me, maybe not short term, but maybe in the long term, that prayer would help. And obviously I know now that it really didn't do much, but having like something, some concrete thing that you could do that you think in your mind, whether it helps or not, you think it's gonna help. Saying a prayer, fasting, going to the temple, getting a blessing, all of those things are things that we felt like were an actual thing that we could do that would help that situation. A lot of people also mentioned that like surety of knowing what was coming in the next life, or knowing what had happened before we were born. Just the basic feeling of, I have all the answers. Knowing that when you die, you'll be with your friends and your family and your pets again. Another one that I really related to that a lot of people mentioned was singing together as a group. A big part of gathering together as Mormons is that you're gonna sing hymns together, songs that everybody knows. And I 100% understand the feeling. Some people mentioned that they actually really liked the hymns, and other people mentioned like, I don't miss the hymns at all. I didn't like the hymns, but I did like singing as a group. And I have to be honest, I feel a little bit of that on both sides. I really loved singing as a group, and the times that I've gone back to the church since leaving just for a funeral or whatever, I've participated in the singing because it's something that I feel the sense of community about. Somebody specifically said, singing in unison, I felt love. And I completely understand that. These days, going to a concert and having all of these people around you that are there to see this one artist and singing the lyrics together as a group gives you like such a deep feeling of love and unity and peace, and it's just beautiful. Somebody said, having a community of predictable people and having something in common with my family. I miss having a built-in community wherever I went. I miss the potluck food. I miss singing Christmas songs together on Sundays in December. Miss the guarantee of seeing my friends every week. Miss the comfort of familiarity. That's a good one. I didn't have to think so hard about how terrible the world is. Yeah, I feel you on that. I miss church ball, potlucks, primary songs, and singing in the church choir. Having hope for life after death and feeling like there was an answer for everything. Pre-organized community service activities. That's another really good one. A lot of times the Relief Society or the youth would put together like donation packets for like hygiene supplies or food, things like that. People who were excited to see me every week, even if it was fake. I miss community. See, I feel like that it depends on like what ward you were in. It depends on the people around you. Some of it felt a little bit more fake. Some people were, you know, just putting on a face. But other people, I feel like it just depends. Like there can be a really strong sense of connection and people who care about you. And obviously it's kind of like the bishop roulette. There's like a ward roulette. Sometimes there's going to be great people and other people that are not so much. And I've definitely heard from both sides of the aisle, people that felt like their relationships in the church weren't really real. But a lot of people who left comments and stuff did have a strong sense of community with the ward they were in and their neighbors, and leaving that and losing it is really, really hard for those people in particular. Regularly singing with people, but not the actual hymns. Besides that, literally nothing. Having a consistent community, a place to make friends as an adult, automatically seeing all your friends once a week, all the scheduling gets taken care of by someone else. That is actually really nice. There's something that's so difficult about making plans with friends as an adult and trying to get everybody's schedules to line up. I loved girls camp. I went as a junior staff once when I was out of Young Women's. I did that too, and I really loved it. Singing, near instant friends anywhere, and basketball/soccer depending on the ward. Yeah, that's another one a lot of people mentioned was sports. A lot of Mormon congregations have like different sports activities for different groups. In my ward, I remember us doing volleyball and basketball. I got really into the basketball for a while. And we also had several different like dances, and usually it was like as a stake. We would have like a big thing where all the youth got together and learned a bunch of different dances and performed it. I thought that was so fun. This comment I really related to. Mormonism was so all-encompassing for me, it felt like a deep cultural or ethnic identity. Even though I've been out for over 15 years, the pioneer stories and identity still tugs at me. I know it's a cray-cray story and built on lies, but the experience of being part of such mythology still tugs. This is hard for me to admit because I went on to become an anthropologist and women's studies professor, and I know how much trauma Mormonism has left in its path. There's no way I'd go back, but there's still so much of my identity that was forged in LDS mythology. I 100% agree with everything you just said, and I think that if you guys are regular viewers, you probably know how I feel about that because I've done a couple of videos about pioneers and what it's like to be an ex-Mormon descended from pioneers and like all the different emotions and feelings that come with that. But I totally agree. And it's still something that I enjoy learning about, and something that I want to feel like a connection to my ancestors, and something I seek out when I'm like looking through my genealogy and seeing these people and looking at their photos and reading their accounts and getting to know who they were and what sort of experiences they had that led them to make the decisions that they did, and how all of that eventually culminated in me and my family leaving the church that they joined 100 years ago. A few people also mentioned just that they had an excuse to dress up every week, which I completely agree with that too. There was actually this phase my husband and I went through for a while where every time we went on a date, we would dress up in our nice clothes just so that we had a chance to wear them. After we left the church, we felt like we didn't have as much of an opportunity to do it. And most of our friends at this point have already gotten married, so we don't have any weddings that we're going to, and sometimes it really is fun to just get dressed up nice. So I know not all of us miss all these aspects of being a part of the Mormon church. Some of us miss a few of them and some miss none at all. I feel like I could relate to most of these, at least in some way or another. And I feel like with this platform, I mostly like criticize the Mormon church where I feel like it has flaws. I've talked about like deconstructing and healing and moving forward. I've made videos addressed to like non-Mormons, to ex-Mormons, and to current Mormons. I've had videos on YouTube that have reached hundreds of thousands of people and videos on TikTok that have reached millions. And thinking about this topic in particular, I felt like it was something that was important to bring up just because there are a lot of us who feel really lonely after leaving Mormonism and losing that sense of community. And I feel like something we should all be able to agree on, whether we're Mormon or ex-Mormon, is that it's really nice to have a community. It's good for our mental health. And a big part of the reason that I continue to make videos on these sorts of topics is because I want to contribute to this sort of ex-Mormon community that has been built online. I posted about this topic on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and I got a really big response on all of those platforms. One of the biggest responses I've had recently, kind of outreaching to the community and asking for a response, this was overwhelming. There were a lot of people that had something to say about it. So I kind of wanted to include in this video different options, different community outreach, things that people can do that might help them bridge the gap with some of these things they miss about Mormonism. Just to start out with, I think that there really is something to the ex-Mormon community. I'm not saying the ex-Mormon community is perfect, and I'm not saying that everybody is going to find a place they belong in it, but there are a lot of different options. There's a lot of different Facebook groups, and Facebook is kind of a toxic place in itself, but I do think it's really good for the group aspect of it. There's ex-Mormon groups all over Facebook. There's some that are specifically for women. There's some that are specifically for ex-Mormons who have dogs. There are some for younger ex-Mormons. And there's some that are like area specific, which I feel like can be really helpful if you want to meet local ex-Mormons. I will say that probably 90% of the people I hang out with on a regular basis are also ex-Mormons. And that honestly is kind of because when you're a Mormon, there's a sense of community. When you leave, that is still something you have in common. So personally, I think that if you're really interested in making friends as an adult outside of the church, groups like this can be really helpful. You can honestly just get on Facebook and search ex-Mormon and a bunch of groups will come up. And because a lot of people were interested and said they missed singing as a group, I decided to look into that a little bit too. I actually don't live in Utah, I live in Idaho, but I looked up things in Utah because I feel like that's where the majority of my audience lives. But you could apply this to anywhere you live as well. I went on Google and I went on Facebook and I searched Utah singing or Utah choir or Utah music. I found several different Facebook groups that I think would be worth looking into if that's something you're really interested in. I also found a couple of different choirs that are worth looking into. I specifically scrolled through the About Them section to see if they were religiously affiliated because a lot of them, especially in Utah, are religiously affiliated, but there are a few that are not. And of course, with a choir group that's more official, you probably are going to have to pay some sort of fee to be a part of it, to get the music and things like that. But what you also have to think about that is that singing in a Utah Mormon ward choir isn't really free either because they want you to pay 10% of your income to be a member of the church. So, it's a little bit of a trade-off. But if you were interested in forming a singing group, just, very informally, I think that you could get onto a group that is about music or singing and just reach out and see, is there anybody in this area that wants to get together and sing as a group on, a more regular basis? And I think that that's something that if you were really interested in it, you could make it happen. One of the comments I really liked said that they missed pre-organized community service activities. So I looked into that too. There are community service opportunities everywhere. There's some in my area I know about that will put together hygiene kits and clothing kits for survivors of domestic violence. If you go on Google and search for community service opportunities, you can find so many different websites that will point you in the right direction. I'll put a few on screen right here. You can put in your zip code and the area you live in, and you can even put in keywords. So if there's certain things that you're interested in volunteering and helping out with, you can find them. Sorting and distributing food, accepting donations of food, putting together hygiene kits, driving seniors to different services and fun things for them. So that's definitely something I think a lot of people should look into. And it's, again, another thing that it has that aspect of community to it. It's a great place to meet new people. I've talked about this before on this channel, and I've heard it quoted in ex-Mormon spaces a lot of times that anything good about the church is not unique and anything unique about the church is not good. And for the most part, I do still agree with that, especially because, as you can see, there are so many things that people miss about the church that you can find other places. Opportunities to do service, places that you can sing together with other people, places that you can make friends. I think the one thing unique the church does have going for it is that it has all of these things in one place. And if you're born into it, it's built in. It's just there. You don't have to seek it. You're already a part of it. So when you leave and you have to try to find other ways to fill that cup, it can be difficult. Some of the things I've done to try to build a community after leaving the church, just for me personally, have included baking cookies for my next door neighbors at Christmas time. This is something that we always did when I grew up in Utah and I knew all of my neighbors and they were a part of my ward. We would always do cookies or some sort of little Christmas gift for our neighbors. And after leaving the church and like moving around a bit, I hadn't really been doing it. But now that I live somewhere where I feel like I'm here for the long haul, I really want to get to know my neighbors better. So at Christmas time, I like to bake cookies and give them to my neighbors. Another thing is just joining and being part of my neighborhood Facebook group and getting to know some of those people, putting a name to a face. Another thing was that my husband and I built a community library so we could share books with the neighbors and the neighbor kids, just all in an effort to bring the community together a little bit more and at least get to know our neighbors' names and faces. For most people, being able to get out and about, to socialize with people, to have a community is really good for your mental health. So if that's something that you feel like you're missing after leaving the church, I really encourage you to look into any of these things and maybe try it out for yourself. If you do, or if you have, I would love to hear it in the comment section down below. Let me know if you joined a choir. Let me know if you created a new community. Let me know if you've met ex-Mormons using this platform or any other. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for being here. Special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel, and extra special thank you to Doug Davis for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. You are the best. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.